when a peak human is able to knock down Darkseid, I think we need to fire some writers. Have you ever been reading a comic where the human protagonist goes up against a superhuman? How many times has it ended with a satisfying story that gives a believable way for the underdog to actually win? For me, far too little. I've been reading comics for a few years now and I've noticed a problem in these fights. Let's look at some examples. Here we have the Flash, the fastest man alive. So fast he can alter history through time travel. Surely a fight between him and Deathstroke would be easy, considering Deathstroke is mostly a human with minor abilities. Right? Oh, so the fastest man alive just ran into a sword the same man who can think and react at the speed of light? Okay, maybe I'm crazy. Let's look at another example here. We have Frank Castle, a regular human with military training. It's impressive if you're a civilian, but he's up against the Wolverine, a man who has a healing factor that makes him damn near immortal. Oh, so he just throws him into a power line. The same man who survived a lightning strike from a Thor clone, who survived a nuke? Okay, so you might be wondering why I'm calling this video Batwank. And that is because Batman is patient zero for this nonsense. I mean, defeating the Hulk with a kick to the stomach is insane. Anytime you have an edgy Sigma Lord hero who goes up against a superpowered cape, the writer is legally obligated to make the underdog win, no matter what explanation they have. All of this feels like when I used to play Skyrim as a kid and typed in TGM toggle god mode. It is cheap, unearned, and doesn't make sense. And feats should make sense. I have no problem with Batman, Deathstroke, or even Frank Castle being able to conceive of plans to take down anyone as long as it makes sense. If you have a regular human, or in the case of Deathstroke, somewhat human, and you give them superhuman feats consistently, then just make them superhuman. Batman is cool because he has to be scrappy, resourceful, tactful. Batman is a character where you write him into a corner, and the thing that he does to get out of it should be a feat of intellect. He is the world's greatest detective, and the puzzles he solves can be anything. When you take that away from him and instead just use iconography and cheap action, it makes his stories lame and predictable. The worst part is how seriously this is taken by everyone. Batman being able to defeat anyone and anything has become an idea so popular and infectious that simply stating the fact that he's, human, gets you an earful from a non-comic reader who will go on to show you the most egregious Batwank there is that he just googled. However, it didn't always used to be this way. Now I'm reading some older comics from the 80s people have recommended, and I gotta say, Justice League International is a riot. This has to be the funniest book I've read in a while that still maintains a pretty interesting story with a good cast of characters. However, I noticed that the way this comic treats Batman feels like a previous step in the evolution of the virus that is Batwank. This comic is where we have the infamous panel of Guy Gardner, a Green Lantern, getting knocked out by Batman in one punch. While I find it hilarious as the book reads mostly like a sitcom, I wonder if it was comedic feats like these that started the chain of events leading up to the accursed Dark Knight Returns fight. Perhaps back in the day it was treated as a bit that Batman can do anything even though he's a human, but now it has grown into a virus that had its first outbreak in 1986, with the obnoxiously popular Batman v Superman fight. While it is common for different strains of a virus to exist at the same time, one will always win in the long run. That victory has had ramifications that we are still feeling to this day. If you are in your 20s, there's a chance you grew up with the prime of DC animation. You were able to watch the old stuff on Boomerang and got to watch Static Shock and Justice League Unlimited on Cartoon Network. McDuffie is a man that we have to thank for that. While there are others that worked on these shows, he brought us one of the most hyped Flash moments, a spicy love triangle between Green Lantern, Vixen, and Hawkgirl, but unfortunately, he also brought us Batwank. I love this show with all of my heart, but if you've seen it, you know what I mean. At a young age, we were groomed to believe that Batman is more important and better than any character to ever exist. Let's look at some examples here. We'll start small. Here we have Sinestro, said to be the greatest Green Lantern to ever exist. And when he turns rogue and creates an entire army of Yellow Lanterns in his name, the Sinestro Corps, he becomes an even greater threat. Surely this show has a great way to explain why Batman can beat him, right? Oh, a batarang hit his chest and he fell? Alright, maybe they didn't know who he was. Let's go with another one. Here we have Kalibak, son of Darkseid, a new god. Someone who can hang with Superman, who even defeats Wonder Woman. I mean, they have so many new gods in the show, they have to know how powerful they are, right? No, Batman is able to dodge all of his attacks and even put him on his back? Here we have Darkseid. I don't need to explain who Darkseid is to you. Darkseid is. And you know exactly what scene I am talking about. This is insane. First you have Batman being able to damage Darkseid and knock him off balance, and then you have him dodge Omega Beams. Now I could forgive the Omega Beams as they don't have a defined speed, but if Darkseid is impervious to a laser blast, kicks should not be able to move him. In comics, popularity is power, and go along with things that don't make sense as long as it is entertaining. However, suspending disbelief has its limits. There is a point where the audience snaps out of it and realizes how stupid and self-aggrandizing the writing can be. We are human beings, and oftentimes we gravitate towards human characters, especially when they're sick as hell. Batman is probably the coolest character in comics, full stop, and I get why we want him to win every fight, but the writing needs to be good. One of the best written feats I can remember in the DC AMU is another fight between Batman and Darkseid, only this time it's done well. Batman is able to sneak around Apocalypse and hack the armory, arming 500 Hellspores to detonate. One Hellspore is enough to ravage a planet. What could 500 do? He uses this as blackmail so Darkseid is forced to release Supergirl. The most refreshing part of this scene is how clearly Batman is outmatched physically, even with this armor. Darkseid knows this and tries to scare Batman into submission, but he doesn't budge. So here you have Batman winning a fight against a god because of his intellect. It is a perfect example of how these fights should be written. Now, I still love reading and watching all superhero media, and I will be tuned in for the DCKO events. I know there might be a bit of wanking here and there, but I have hope. Let me know if you guys agree with what I'm saying here, and if you have any more Batwank examples, some bullshit feats. Comment it below. Peace.